Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
We've had some technical difficulties this morning, haven't we, Melissa?
We have had a few, so we've kind of done a very orchestrated call through the phone, through the earphones. So we've got earphones, but yes, it's happening. We've made it happen.
It's happening. Yeah, we're amazing. Oh, power of women. So I've known you for, I don't even know how long I've known you for, but we have a few mutual friends, obviously. Yes. On the Gold Coast. It's pretty small up here, isn't it, the community? But you're also one of my beautiful water customers.
Yes.
And and we've just kind of developed this friendship and connection through social media, through seeing you at the shop, through just having chats on the phone, and it's been really lovely to get to know you. And I love your work, and I find you a beautiful soul with a really authentic spirit, authentic heart. You mean what you say, and I love seeing what you're doing and the work you do. And it just seemed, on the outside, it looks like it all just comes together really nicely and easily for you, but I'm sure that's not the case.
Oh, no, there's a little bit more behind the scenes that go into that. I just ask my family.
Yeah.
When you're living with a very sensitive, empathetic, all of it going on, there's always a journey behind it all. And that's one thing that I'm very, authentic about, that I feel like the things that challenge you in a sense, can only inspire others, because we're all having those challenges. And I think that's one thing that when it comes to feelings or challenges, people seem to sort of only show the best parts of themselves. And I think sometimes the parts when we are a big hot mess or things are really, we're struggling through in a sense, these are the times that we actually, through that resistance that we're moving through, we make our biggest changes. And absolutely. I think it's when we get to move through that resistance, which is, that internal struggle in ourselves, we step into another vibration and it just opens all these new doors. So I don't think it changes for anyone. I think it's just as we move, we have better tools and techniques to actually sort of navigate through what's going on in our lives. And I think that's been a huge journey for me on so many levels with everything, and especially this year, which is what we sort of are getting to talk about. Obviously, we came on together, but that's why I admire you as we sit together, because you've been so authentic about what you've been going through. And I think when people can connect to someone and go, she's feeling that, I felt that, look where she is now, I feel that makes it real. Do you know what I mean? There is no, I will show up in however I show up, you know what I mean? And I'm still going to keep showing up, because I feel like that's my path. I know what I'm doing. And if I can inspire someone through my mess in that moment, then that's all I want to do. Do you know what I mean? Even if it's one person at a time. And that's I think that's been my big thing as well, is to know that even if you're inspiring one person, even if one person sees what you do and it's changing their life, and that's connecting another person to themselves and then in turn together.
Yeah, because we're all struggling at some degree, right? Everybody, men, women, children, everybody living on this planet is not easy, right?
No, well, that's what we signed up for in this beautiful human experience.
Yeah, I don't know why I signed up for it, but anyway.
I think what I'm realising now is we have all these beautiful struggles, but it's really stepping into the expansion of it all, and to really own the struggle in the sense, but not stay in the struggle, and step into how we can expand and receive more in the physical body. I think the human experience, we can get stuck in the hard lack of struggle that we go round and round and round in the circle where it's heavy all the time. And I think it's something I've really shifted through, obviously, moving through what we're going to talk to with grief and death and everything today. I've realised it's nearly like a rebirth when you open up to receive more. And I think we've never really been shown how to receive. We've never really loved ourselves enough to open up to feel what's really on the other side of the struggle. We've only really seen and been brought up with parents that have probably come from struggle, and so that's been the conscious condition we've had until we get here and go, this is not working for me. How can I shift this? How can I change this? And And I think that's the other part of to be able to manifest what we want. Yeah, clear out everything that's sort of stuck unconsciously in our body. But then on the flip side is to open to that expansion and feel, you know, all that we can be on this earth as well, you know, without it having to be hard. We can step into that ease and flow and grace. And that's where I'm sort of playing with now. And it's kind of cool. I kind of like it. I'm sort of enjoying it a little bit more. It's not as heavy and hard.
I know. God, those heavy, hard bits suck balls, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
But it's nice to be in a new energy, and I think a lot of people are still going through a lot of stuff leading towards 2020. You know, we're in a very different era to say our parents' era, dealing with a lot of different things, situations.
Yeah.
And which kind of leads me to the discussion about grief. And you lost your mumma this year.
Yes.
Early this year. So you've been through what all of us are going to go through. I've been through it too, with the kids losing their dad. And as people leave our lives, it's not only just death, but it's death of friendships, death of relationships, death of, I used to do that, now I can't, and now I'm doing this, all those sort of things, death of health. So, you know, can you please just share with us how that was when you lost your mum? I mean, you had I guess you were very lucky in that you sat with her as she was dying.
Yeah, I did get the beautiful gift of the fact that it was really interesting having this journey with Mum, because I felt like all the work that I had been doing for such a long time on myself brought me to the moment of to be able to hold space to help Mum through her journey. And when we actually realised last September, I think September, we got the diagnosis that the breast cancer had moved into her lungs and her spine. It had metastasized everywhere, basically. And this was after she had the reconstruction in July, where we thought, yay, all done, we're finished. Like, this is where we're moving into a new place. You know, Mum's feeling amazing. And then pretty much in a month or two later, we were like on this downward spiral. And pretty much from the September, when we got the full diagnosis of where it had moved, she was gone by January. So it was quite a fast transition. And because it was, funnily enough, in her lungs, which is, I teach breathwork, and then I'd done a lot of work with Belinda Davidson on helping people pass over, souls pass over. And so all of this stuff that I'd done all this work with Mum, I got to sit with her. And it was like this beautiful experience of seeing my mum. She had to let go of being a mum. She didn't have the energy to be a mum to me anymore. So the sort of roles that we played for each other dissipated. And then it was like this beautiful seeing of each other. And to be seen from your mother like that, which I had longed as the little girl that's inside of me so much to have been seen like that, because she never really understood me most of her life. Being the sensitive, hypersensitive empath with all of these things that I felt and saw and seen, she struggled with that, because funnily enough, when I found out watching her in hospital, she is actually a lot like me. So there was a huge part of her that I think that she suppressed in this lifetime, because she didn't have the ability to understand it either from her parents, and she didn't really know how to cope with me either. So I think having this time with Mum where we got to sort of process her life and move through the things that she felt that she hadn't expressed and hadn't felt. How did she let go of all of this life because she had to leave her body? It was such a huge thing when she wasn't really ready to go. Like, she was healthy, she was fit, she was amazing. So it was this real resolve and acceptance that she had to come to, that this was just it. This was just time. And I think as a family, we had to come to that. And everybody has their own ways of relating to death and to the end and grief after, obviously. But I feel like it starts when you know someone's dying, in a sense. There's a process that kicks that, what does death mean to me? You know what I mean? And I started having these conversations with my boys because I didn't want them to feel like they weren't part of this process. And I think that's what I find when we have any process to talk about death. We don't have anything it's such a taboo sort of hidden thing. So when it comes to grief, it's just huge. People don't know how to deal with it because the grief triggers all of these unconscious parts of yourself. And if I was just lucky enough to have done so much inner work on myself that when it did all come up and that little girl inside of me was so desperately longing for her mum, I kind of had to nurture her through it. And that's where I really realized, knowing my sort of unconscious internal patterns and which connected to my little girl, I could really soothe myself. And I didn't connect it as much as I did until I lost my mum. And then so that's been a really deep journey of grief for me, because I navigated through it thinking, first of all, I've lost her. But then when I watched all the work we did together in the few months before she passed, and then to be there and hold space for as she left her body, I don't know if anyone can die beautifully, but she just died beautifully. Like, it was such an honor to watch. It was just, because I was a bit freaked out. So everyone's like, oh, it's going to be a death rattle. There's going to be all of these things that she's going to experience as she sort of, has her last breath. And I was sort of like, okay, I was prepared to sort of go through whatever I was going to see, but she just left. And it was just such an honor. And in that moment, I just felt so much gratitude come back to me. And it was just this peace. And then in that moment, I was like, there's so much more to this. And I've always known that there is, but I think there's that acceptance when it actually is someone that you truly don't want to let go of. It's that human experience that we want to hold on to life. But I think we hold on to so much that we actually are just existing. We're not living. And that's what it really showed me, is like, I'm not living because I'm holding on to so much stuff and shit and beliefs and everything, that I'm actually not living because I'm not opening up to what we just talked about, that receiving, in a sense, to sort of feel what more I can feel. And I think since she's left, I'm like, how can I live my best life? If I'm just, I'm 47. I'm like, she's 70. That's holy shit, that's not far away. If my life was, in the sense, following my mum's path, do I want it to follow my mum's path? As much as I love and adore her, and she was an amazing woman, do I feel that she fulfilled her life? Do I feel she left here having done everything she wanted? No, I don't think she did.
And I think you're so lucky to have had that time, but a lot of people don't. People get taken away, as my kid's dad did, suddenly. So it's quite a traumatic experience, and it's traumatic for children, and it was traumatic for me, traumatic for his family and his friends, and we all go through our grief differently, don't we? And I know my kids have gone through it different, still going through it, especially my daughter. And I don't know if boys are different, or whether they hide it differently. And my grief didn't come out until I was really triggered by something later on, like a couple of years down the track. So I held my grief in for quite a long time, and I have cancer in the lung too. So where is grief?
And that's where grief is, in your lungs, and that's why the breath was so huge to me, and to be able to sort of do a lot of breath work on myself through this, knowing grief was held there. And I felt it, because it felt heavy to breathe. And I started to feel a little disconnected to wanting to breathe as well. And to me, when I feel disconnected to the breath, I'm disconnected to my life, because obviously breath is life. And then you're actually moving away from a feeling. And to me, your physical body holds on to those feelings. So when we get to breathe, we get to move through whatever's cellularly stuck. So if we're holding on to something like grief, especially, it sits in parts of your body. Anything, any trauma, any past experience we've had, any unconscious beliefs that we created between 0 and 7, it is all stored. It's like a little cellular computer that our bodies are. So when we get to breathe, we get to see ourselves without the mind protecting us, in a sense, to shift. And so working through grief with the breath, but also being really consciously aware of my feelings and not hiding them. And that's why life is easy to life is too busy to feel. It's like you're only allocated a certain time. Okay, this is when you have this, then you're going through the funeral, then this, and then all of a sudden it finishes. Yeah. And then no one talks about it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where people feel very disconnected, because grief really comes after the event, when all of the, the shock, like you say, of the trauma of the loss, and especially if it's, like you said, such a fast process where you didn't know what was going to happen. So you have all these things that are whirling around in your head of what you could have said, what you should have done, what you didn't get to experience before that person. And then the moment that it happens, and no matter what moment that is, whether you've had time or not, it's still the moment that you're never going to see that person again, physically, in a sense. And then so that's when the grief starts, but it's really when everyone disappears. And that's what I find. If you have no way of connecting to yourself or any tools to navigate your emotions and nurture yourself, then we suppress things. And like you say, it manifests in different ways. And I think the huge part that I learnt was everyone's going to grieve in a different way, and you can't change that.
No.
And
you can't push the process.
You can't push the process.
Oh, hurry up, just want it to end. And
I don't think it ever goes away. I think it moves with you in different ways. I think it becomes part of who you are. It's like it shows you, so you can sit in the heaviness and the sadness and stay stuck in the sense of what you have lost, or you can open to the fact of, what can I receive from the beautiful life that this person who I was so deeply connected to, what have they shown me? Like, what do I want to keep moving forward in my life, living? I don't want to, well, this is how I felt. It was like, I've lost my mum. I can't change that. And when you can't change things, if you want to control life, that's really hard, because then you're too scared to feel, because you're scared of your emotions. And then if you turn around and go, well, I'm just going to step into grief however it turns up, and allow myself to feel and navigate and find tools and techniques that I can actually embrace it. And I think that's where we're never taught, even from a young person, how to navigate our own emotions. So when it comes to something as final as grief, it brings up everything. Anger, betrayal, hurt, sadness. Like, it's not just one feeling. And I went through moments of being so fucking angry that mum died. Like, fuck you, why did you die? Like, it's like, we only just had this 3 months where I felt like you saw me for the first time, and now you're gone. Yeah. And like, for you and the kids, it's like that he died so fast, we didn't have time. Like, so, and it, like, even though it's sad, but I think people feel guilty for feeling the gamut of emotions that grief brings up. Yeah. Because it's not just sadness. It goes through your whole relationship.
It affects everything. It affects everything. Every relationship you have, every situation in your life, every choice. It's kind of like the thing that's always there, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's the gift.
Yeah. And
I think that's where, if we can change our perception on death, because really from the moment we're born, we're dying. And we have no time, as in the sense, time is just an illusion in the sense of, we don't know how long we've got here. No. So we can choose to be worried and in fear of when we're going to die, or we can embrace every moment that we've got here right now. Yeah. And I think that's what death has really empowered me with. It's like, well, what do I want to take on? Obviously, being my mother, there's so much of her that is me, and vice versa. What do I want to keep, and what do I want to leave? And that sort of legacy thing. And then how did seeing my life and moving through that lineage of what my grandmother thought, the thoughts and the patterns that I've taken on, that my mum took on. And so it was a huge clearing for me to really sort of stand in my own power, in the sense, because when you lose the person that births you, and it's a kind of your channel here to earth and everything, my breath work went really deep, and I went right back to my birth trauma, and everything that happened has sort of brought me to like the moment, and this all stimulated from mum's death. Yeah. It's been things that I've gone and touched on, but this year has just been full pelt into like, whoa, I just didn't, perspective, and I think it's when you know that and you don't fear death anymore, and there's a liberating feeling of like, well, I am dying in some capacity. What can I do in this moment to love myself more and then also impart that to others?
Mm.
And then I think that every challenge I get, I just sort of move into it as it's a gift. And even when I'm feeling like, you know, coming up to Christmas and then coming up to the first year of her death, and, you know, it's really hard for me because my sister has reacted to grief differently and she's gone very shut down. So, and I'm a very open person and like to be. So I have to just accept, and all I can do is view my reactions to, if I'm reacting to how she's grieving, then that's something in me that I get to heal. And I think, like you said, for the kids, well, my kids were really young. So in the sense, well, 7 and 9, but I think the beautiful part is they've been taught a lot of Aboriginal teachings and learnings, and they believe in reincarnation, and we have these beautiful discussions, and I think kids have this beautiful innocence that we can only take away if we dump our grief all over them. I was really open with how I was feeling when Nana's gone, how they were feeling, and I had really seen a lot of emotion from them. Mum wrote some letters to the boys, and Zane read his out, and that's the first time I've seen him cry. So they will process it as they get older and have an understanding in different ways, I think. And you probably found that with your daughter and son, that as they get more understanding of life, the grief changes.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a process, and I can't help but think, you know, and wish that I'd done something. I don't know. I wish I'd done things differently, but I didn't know. You know, I know looking back now, I wish that I'd helped them better. But I think what I did was I took their grief on as well as my own. So I
And
put mine to
suppressed
the
it in a
side.
sense. Yeah.
Put mine to the side, held theirs, because I just wanted to protect them from such a traumatic experience that I didn't allow myself. And I don't know if that was beneficial for them either, but it is what it is, and it's happened how it's happened. But I know my daughter, you know, she struggles to this day, and she is getting help for it now. But I was quite surprised how it developed, and that, you know, with the trauma, the coping mechanisms that we can sometimes set up for ourselves, that can be, you know, push it aside and disassociate with it and then move on, but then it's going to come up, isn't it? So anything that's put to the side will always be there.
And that's what I think as society we've sort of been taught as well from a young age. It's like, what's wrong? You know, you'll be okay. You know, you'll be right. Like, let's not talk about it, instead of saying, how are you feeling right now? You know, what's going on? Can I, you know, how can I help you feel safer? How can I help you come back to more alignment right now? What can we do? But with our kids, if something scary is happening or something bad happens, we just like, what's wrong? It's all good. It's like, you know, we just sort of, we don't ask them to go back within, and we're basically saying what you're feeling is wrong.
Yeah.
So then it separates them, and in their, you know, even when they're in that sort of, we don't have any logic from that sort of young age, it's all sort of unconscious. It's like, I hear, I feel, I see. We're making big decisions and beliefs about ourselves with no logic. And it's only until we sort of pass 7 that we can have some logic on why things actually happen in life. And obviously, as we get older, we have a lot of logic and not a lot of feeling. You know what I mean? It shuts down that, and we get so stuck in our mind. And then that really makes it hard for us to navigate our feelings, because we've never been shown how to feel. It's never been okay to be emotional or express. Or like for me, I was the other way, where I was over emotional. So it's like, oh my God, you're so sensitive and you're too emotional, and it's this, it's that. It's like, and no one knew how to deal with me. It was just, everything was coming in, and everyone wasn't talking about it. So I was expressing it through my body, you know.
I'm like that,
yeah. And you get it. So it's sort of like, but as I got older, I realized it wasn't serving me. So really I had to go within and figure out what my little girl truly believed about herself, which was she's not good enough. So part of me feeling even grief would bring up that I'm not good enough. And when I went back to my birth trauma, it was like being alive. I was going to die. So everything felt like a struggle for life, in a sense. So I can see why I've created a lot of struggle in my life. And that's going back to those real unconscious beliefs that, you know, with the breath, I got to uncover, but then I could shift it out of my body. And I think not holding on to each emotion as it came up, as I navigated grief and really honored it, I got to learn more about myself and how I could soothe myself and nurture myself through something where I'm not looking outside of myself or blaming the fact that my life is shit, my mum's gone now, everything's turned to shit. And don't worry, parts of me felt like that all the time. It's like, you know, especially when you're running your own business and you've got 2 little kids, and life does not stop because someone dies. And I think that's the hard part, and which is why I started that, we talked about that breathe and grieve, because it's a confronting thing to talk about, grief. But I think it's hard because people don't like to share feelings or feel feelings. And to me, if you can get in touch with your feelings, you're going to change your life. It's not to stay stuck in the emotion, but it's to be empowered in feeling it so you can actually shift it,
get it
kind
out.
of take a layer off your heart so you can open to receive more and shift into a different, you know, part of yourself, into a new vibration that you can start really feeling and living the life you want. But if you still got, you know, I suppose you're stuck in a sense and holding on to those beliefs about yourself, and grief is a great one to stay stuck in, because it can just manifest through every part of your life, like you say. And if you have no tools to navigate through it or the confidence to feel, and I've just been really lucky to have done this work, that I have seen all the gifts that grief has given me and what death actually is. And I got to explore so much more, which tapped me into a lot of what I'd suppressed in myself, in my a lot of my gifts. But the human side of me still would love to have my mum back, as you would, your kids would like to have their dad back, and you'd like to have your ex-husband back. It's like it doesn't take the human experience away, but if you can see and open to the gifts that it's given you and what their life has actually shown you to move forward, then you're not holding on to the past. You're not regretting, and you might regret how you navigated through that moment, but you did it perfectly in what your children need to experience right now. You know, and with your awareness that you've created through your journey, now they're getting, through your shifts, are going to have the shifts that they're going to live their life a different way now. So it's all perfect, even though it looks really freaking unperfect, but life is not perfect.
It's messy.
It's messy, and it's beautiful. And I think that's the reality of it, isn't it, really?
It is. And just to end our conversation, you know, it's taken you deeper into your work, which is, you're a breath worker predominantly. I know you do other things, you mentor people, help people on many levels, but I guess the gift your mama gave you was to dive deeper into yourself, to find out more about who you are and what an amazing, courageous woman you are, because you don't stop diving deep. And that's why I think I love you, because I love women that aren't afraid to tackle the hard stuff and talk about the hard stuff. And I think, you know, you're a way shower. We need people like you out there to help people with your modality, with your breath work. I'm getting emotional even now.
I can make emotional.
But it is powerful stuff. And I have had a breath work session with you, but I would like to do more sessions with you, because I think you understand the lung thing. And I find it hard to take in life and in a deeper way. And I think that's my journey, continual journey, is to take life in a bigger way, and with more courage and fearlessness.
And I think you do. And I think you underestimate how much you impact people by what you already do. And I think that we don't actually see that in ourselves, and we think we need to spend more time reflecting on that. And that's something that I've giving myself a chance to do more, because we always get and shift and move, and then we don't really see where we've come from.
Yeah.
And I think for me, diving deep inside myself, I can only hold space in a sense, or show people more into themselves to the level and the depth that I've gone.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
I think for me, that's been my biggest journey, because I was always like, there's more, I need to understand.
Yeah.
And it's just been this evolving thing. And sometimes I think, am I freaking crazy? Like, it's like, but it's like, I wouldn't really have it any other way, because I'm getting to this stage now, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting closer to 50 or what it is. It's just that, but it's like, I know, I wish I had all this back in the body.
Don't we wish?
Can't we just, can't we?
God,
but
the
then
choices.
It's just, I know, and it's. I don't think the experience you can ever change. There's so much more information for our younger generation, in the sense, but the experience and what you evolve into, you can't embody that without the experience. It's you can embody so much, but until you've actually lived and experienced, the embodiment as you get older shifts. And I think that's where we're seeing now, our generation that have had unconscious parents are moving. We've been the bridge. We've been the gap. Whereas a lot of the young crew now that are doing amazing things, they had more conscious parents, and they had a different sort of upbringing. So I feel like we're, the kind of the bridge that have given a huge, and it's just shifting so fast now. I think it's beautiful.
It is. It's awesome. And it's been awesome talking to you, my love. Thank you so much.
This opportunity, and I know this many times, and and I love you, and thank you for allowing me to come on and sharing, and I hope I offered some value.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks, love.
I love you. Thanks, Mel.
Bye.
Thanks. I've got to work out how to stop it now. Bye, love.